Hello and welcome back to NYPD Preacher. My name is Richard Tamayo and I am your host. Today we'll be talking about the mystery of the tree. Why does the Bible talk so much about a tree? We talked about the tree in the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of life. Okay? And the tree is a very important thing. The weirdest thing I read about in the scripture was when a blind man got his vision back and he said he saw men walking like trees. It puzzled me. But then God started revealing to me the importance of a tree. The tree, if you look at it in a sense, we see it all around us. A lot of times we go under a tree when we're seeking shade. The shadow that it makes over you at the time when the sun is the hottest. And usually the sun is the hottest at noon. Now I told you before that noon and midnight were times of judgment. Now I'm going to show you throughout scriptures that many prophets sat under a tree just before or during the time of judgment. Now we'll take the first case scenario. We'll talk about Jonah. Now Jonah, when he went to the place of Nineveh, or the land of Nineveh, he went to basically pass judgment on them because God sent him as a prophet. And he made himself a booth outside of the walls of Nineveh, and he hid himself under the booth because as a prophet sitting under a booth, he represented a time of judgment. Okay, now the booth was what they call a sukkot. A sukkot, S-U-K-K-O-T, is a Jewish term used, and it's something that they use at the Feast of Tabernacle. Now we'll discuss the Feast of Tabernacle later on, and I'll explain why Jesus did not go to the Feast of Tabernacle, and he stated it was not his time yet because Jesus as a prophet could not sit under a booth that represented the trees because he is a prophet, and if he would have sat under the booth, it would have been a time of judgment, and it wasn't time of judgment yet. Now, we also have the story about an old man, an old prophet that went to King Jeroboam to pass judgment, and he sat under an oak tree. We also have a story about the prophetess Deborah. Deborah the prophetess sat under a tree, and the people came to her to be judged. An angel even sat under a tree. We also have Adam and the woman when they hid amongst the trees when they heard the voice of God, because God was coming in and they knew they had committed sin and they were about to be judged. So the tree is what protects us. It's what God basically made so that we can have protection from the sun. Now, the people of Israel, the Jewish people, at the time of Feast of Tabernacle, which is also the Feast of Booth, would make a booth by taking branches from different trees, palm trees, oak trees, fig trees, all kind of trees you can imagine. Now we also understand that the first sin happened under a tree. Now, a lot of people say that the tree, the apple, is the fruit of sin. Now, it doesn't say that anywhere in the Bible, and remember, knowledge is power. And if you don't read, you're not going to have knowledge, thus meaning you have no power whatsoever. I'm going to show you through scriptures how you have two individuals. You have the woman and Adam. They can eat of all the trees in the garden except for two. So this woman, she sees the fruit on the tree to be desirable. So can you imagine if you see a fruit on a tree and you're like, man, I can't wait to eat that fruit. But just like everything in life, it has a process. A time when the fruit is not ready, the time when the fruit is ready, and the time past when the fruit is rotten. Beforehand, it's sour. At its appointed time, it's delicious, sweet, and ready to go. And then the process afterward is spoiled. It's rotten. So I'm sure that the woman stood there looking at the tree, waiting for its appointed time that they knew it could be eaten. Now, if you're anxious and you're excited about eating this fruit, you're not going to take the fruit from the tree and then walk away and go find another tree to go sit under and eat this fruit. I'm sure that you're gonna grab it off the tree, just like most people do when they go to orchards and they get an apple off the tree and they think, wow, it's delicious. They polish it up and they bite it while they're under the tree. Realize that human nature does not change. She took the fruit from the tree, she bit the fruit, and they saw that they were naked. What do you think is going to happen once you realize that you're naked after you just ate the fruit? You're going to rip the leaves off the tree and cover yourselves. And it says they covered themselves with fig leaves. That is the tree that they sinned when they ate of the fruit. It's the fig tree because they used the fig leaves to cover themselves because they were under the fig tree, the place where sin happened. Throughout all the scriptures, the prophets, when they sit under a tree, it's because judgment is about to take place or is taking place. Adam and the woman hid from God in the garden by hiding amongst the trees. Jesus also cursed the fig tree. Jesus, Son of God, like I spoken before, Spirit of Adam, knew the symbol of the fig tree. So understand the mysteries of the tree. I also believe Leonardo da Vinci, like I said, his Last Supper painting had scriptures in it, and it was speaking of a mystery, a secret. God has secrets, and there's times when He reveals those secrets, and there's specific people He will reveal them to. Leonardo da Vinci also painted another famous painting, but he used a whole room inside a palace to do it. It's called Sala de la Se. Sala in Spanish sounds like a room or a living room. De la Se. It's spelled S-A-L-A, de la, D-E-L-L-E, Se, A-S-S-E. This is the painting Leonardo da Vinci painted. It is a room filled with trees and branches and leaves and all kinds of, imagine standing underneath in this room, underneath this painting, you're basically standing under trees. You're basically standing, might as well have been created a booth inside this room, a sukkah. Imagine the Feast of Tabernacle. Jesus told his disciples and he told his brother that he could not go to Judea to be part of the Feast of Tabernacles, which is the Feast of Booth, which is the feast where they take all these branches from different trees and they create this booth and they hide and they sit underneath it for 7 days. They are under the booth because that is the protection of God. The same way God caused the gourd to grow over Jonah. God allowed this gourd to grow over him to give him protection from the sun, from the heat of the sun, during the noontime, the time of judgment. Jonah the prophet. We also have when God and his two angels came before Abraham at his tent, and Abraham saw that it was the Lord and the two angels, two men with him, and he says, may you sit down under the tree while I wash and get you a little bit of water. What was that before? It was right before Sodom and Gomorrah was to be judged. It was there was a time when Abraham came to God and asked him, what if there are a couple of righteous men living in Sodom and Gomorrah? Would you destroy them? And he went down from 50 down to a few. God was about to judge Sodom and Gomorrah, and he sat under a tree. I'll show you these scriptures at the end of this video. You can refer them through the scriptures. But back to this painting of Sala de la Se. It is a painting that Leonardo da Vinci painted, and look at in the center of it, you have the shield. The same shields that you have above the Last Supper. It represents royalty, it represents kingdom, and it's smack in the center of the room. That is a noon position. Where is the sun at noon? It's exactly above you, directly above you in the noon position. If you take the earth, half of the earth, and you start from the 6 a.m. and you go all the way to 6 p.m., halfway is noon, 12 o'clock. It's the hottest point of the day. Noon and midnight, times of judgment. Now, Jesus said it was not his time yet to sit underneath the booth at the Feast of Tabernacle. But his time is fulfilling, and the time will come where Jesus physically will sit underneath the booth, underneath the tree, because now when this king, our prophet, sits under a tree, the way God sat under a tree before passing a judgment on Sodom and Gomorrah, is the same thing that will happen. This is a secret that Leonardo da Vinci was leaving us when he painted this painting of Sala della Se. Trees, referencing the Feast of Tabernacle, referencing the booth, referencing the trees that are in the garden, and throughout history and biblical generations, what the tree represents. Sitting under the tree, time of judgment. Standing under the tree, just like King Saul did in the forest when he knew David was coming up against him.
Tree, and it says it said to bring down his body from the tree and cast him into the entering of the gate of the city. Now, that's where they hung the kings. When they went to battle, they would hang them on a tree. We also have Joshua 10, verse 24 to 26. And this is where 5 kings were caught, put in a cave, and then they were brought out by Joshua and the men of Israel, and they were hung on a tree. And it says, and afterward Joshua smote them, meaning injured them, and killed them, and hanged them on 5 trees. So 5 trees, they hung the kings on a tree. Now also Jesus was hung under a tree. The cross was a tree. It was a representation of a tree. In Acts 5 it talks about, and God our Father raised up Jesus, who they killed and hung on a tree. Jesus King Ai, when Joshua went against them and when they entered in the promised land in the book of Joshua, and then the other 5 kings that they apprehended, and they hung them on a tree. Hanging. Why? Because death, judgment under a tree.